The stars had never looked so empty. Admiral Una Park stood at the observation window of her flagship, the Indomitable, watching the last ships of the Valori swarm disappear into hyperspace. Their crystalline hulls caught the light of distant suns for one brief moment, shimmering like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Then they were gone, just like everyone else. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in tense silence. The soft beeping of consoles and the hum of the ship's engines were the only sounds. Nobody wanted to say what everyone was thinking. Lieutenant de Suhan finally broke the silence. "Admiral, the Valori ambassador is requesting a final transmission before they jump." "Put it through." The hologram flickered to life. A tall, insect-like creature with compound eyes that reflected rainbow colors. Ambassador Kira had been one of humanity's few friends on the Galactic Council. Now even she was leaving. "Admiral Park," Kira said, her translator giving her voice a musical quality. "I tried to convince my people to stay. I truly did. But the fear is too great. The Hollow have consumed 17 civilizations in 18 months. We cannot fight what we do not understand." Park kept her face calm, though anger burned in her chest. "We understand enough. They can be hurt. They can be stopped." "You have never seen them, Admiral." "Not truly. The Morath had a fleet of 10,000 ships. The Thurian Empire had weapons that could crack planets. All of them are gone now. Silent worlds and empty space. Your species is brave, but bravery alone cannot what?" Park interrupted. "Cannot win? Perhaps. But we will not run. Earth is our home. We have nowhere else to go." Kira's compound eyes seemed to soften. "Then I am sorry, Admiral. Truly sorry. History will remember humanity's courage, even if there is no one left to write it." The transmission ended. Park stared at the empty space where the hologram had been for a long moment before turning to face her crew. "How many ships do we have left in the sector?" she asked. Commander Taeyoung Kim pulled up the numbers on his screen. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. 212 combat vessels, Admiral. 47 support ships. The rest of the fleet is scattered across our territories, trying to maintain order. And the enemy? Unknown. But based on what we've seen, he hesitated. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Jizuhan looked up from her console. "Admiral, what do we do?" It was the question everyone was asking. Across Earth's colonies, across the stations and outposts that humanity had built over 3 centuries of space exploration, people were looking to their leaders for answers. Some were already panicking. There had been riots on Mars. A transport ship full of refugees had been destroyed trying to follow the Valori into hyperspace. They hadn't realized the coordinates were encrypted. Park thought about her daughter, Minji, who was studying medicine on Earth. She thought about her husband, who had died 5 years ago in a mining accident on Titan. She thought about the billions of people who called humanity's scattered worlds their home. Running was not an option. Not for humans. "We fight," she said simply. "We fight with everything we have." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Some looked terrified. Others looked relieved, as if they had been waiting for someone to finally say those words. "The Galactic Council called us the youngest species," Park continued, walking slowly among the consoles. "They said we were too primitive to understand the true nature of the universe. Too aggressive. Too emotional. They gave us the smallest voice, the fewest resources, the least respect." She stopped at the main view screen, which showed a map of known space. Red zones marked hollow territory, an ever-expanding stain spreading across the galaxy like blood in water. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps we are aggressive. Perhaps we are emotional. But I have studied human history, and I know one thing that every other species seems to have forgotten. She turned to face her crew. "We have never learned how to give up." The words hung in the air. Lieutenant Jisuhan felt something stir in her chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. Determination, perhaps. Or defiance. "Admiral," Taiyang said carefully, "the enemy is approaching the Kepler corridor. If they pass through, they'll have a direct route to the Sol system, to Earth. Then we don't let them pass. With 200 ships against, I know the numbers, Commander." Park's voice was calm. "I also know that every species that fled did so without firing a single shot. They saw the hollow coming, and they ran. Maybe they were smart. Maybe they were right." She smiled grimly. "But humans are not known for being smart. We are known for being stubborn." She activated the fleet-wide communication channel. Every ship in the sector would hear her words. "This is Admiral Park to all United Earth vessels. By now, you know that our allies have abandoned us. The Valori, the Morath, the Thurians, all of them are gone. They believe that fighting the Hollow is impossible. They believe that resistance is futile." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "I disagree. In 3 centuries of space exploration, humanity has faced countless challenges. We have survived plagues, wars, disasters, and extinction-level events. Every time, someone told us it was hopeless. Every time, we proved them wrong. Across the fleet, crews stopped what they were doing to listen. In engine rooms and medical bays, in weapons stations and cargo holds, humans looked up at the speakers broadcasting their admiral's voice. I will not lie to you. Many of us will die in the days ahead. The enemy is vast and terrible, and we are alone. But we are not weak. We are not helpless. And we are not afraid." She took a deep breath. "Humanity draws the line here. At the Kepler corridor, we will show the galaxy what it means to stand and fight. We will show them that some things are worth dying for. And when the Hollow break against our ships like waves against a cliff, every species that fled will know the truth." Her voice rose, ringing with conviction. "They called us primitive. They called us aggressive. They called us emotional. Today, we prove that those are not weaknesses. They are our greatest strengths." She closed the channel and turned to her crew. Every face was set with grim determination. "Set course for Kepler corridor. Maximum speed." The Indomitable turned toward the darkness, and humanity's fleet followed. 57 days remained before the Hollow would reach Earth. Dr. Yoonji Beek had not slept in 3 days. The laboratory aboard the research station Horizon was a mess of scattered datapads, half-eaten food packets, and the strange dark fragments of hollow technology spread across every surface. The smell of chemicals burned her nostrils, but she had stopped noticing it days ago. The Hollow Scout drone on her examination table looked almost organic, black and smooth like whetstone, with shapes that seemed wrong somehow, as if they existed at angles that human eyes were not designed to see. Every time Yoonji looked at it too long, she got a headache. "What are you?" she muttered to herself for the 100th time. Her assistant, a young man named Jinsu Lee, entered the lab with fresh coffee. He placed the cup near her hand without speaking. He had learned that Dr. Beek did not like to be interrupted when she was thinking. Yoonji picked up the coffee without looking, took a sip, and continued studying the data on her screen. The readings made no sense. The hollow drone had no power source that she could identify. No fuel cells, no batteries, no reactor. Yet it had been functioning when they captured it. "It's like trying to understand fire before you know what oxygen is," she said. "We're missing something fundamental." Junsu cleared his throat nervously. "Doctor, the War Council is requesting your report. Admiral Park wants to know if you found any weaknesses." Yoonji laughed bitterly. "Weaknesses? I can barely tell you what these things are made of. Every test gives different results. It's as if they exist in a state of constant change. She stood up and stretched her aching back. Through the observation window, she could see Earth in the distance, a small blue marble hanging in the void. So fragile, so precious. Tell the Admiral I'll give my report in 1 hour, she said. I may not have answers, but I have theories. 1 hour later, Yoonji stood before the holographic projections of humanity's leaders. Admiral Park attended from the Indomitable, already positioned near the Kepler corridor. General Dongwu Shin, commander of Earth's ground forces, joined from the Planetary Defense Headquarters in Seoul. A dozen other admirals, generals, and politicians filled the virtual conference room. The Hollow are not alive, Yoonji began without introduction. Not in any way we understand. They have no DNA, no cells, no biological processes. They're more like a function, a mathematical equation given physical form. Speak plainly, Doctor, General Shin said. His voice was gruff, impatient. Can they be killed? Everything can be killed, General. The question is whether we can kill them fast enough. Yoonji pulled up a diagram showing the structure of a hollow vessel. They consume organic matter and convert it into more of themselves. Every planet they've taken has been stripped clean. Not just the people, every plant, every animal, every microorganism. Life itself is their fuel. Admiral Park leaned forward in her hologram. What about weapons? Our missiles, our lasers, do they work? Yes, but not as well as they should. The hollow seem to absorb energy. Kinetic weapons work better, simple projectiles, explosives, physical impacts. The problem is their numbers. For every drone we destroy, they can create 10 more from the matter they've consumed. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were not just fighting an enemy fleet. They were fighting a force that grew stronger with every victory. There is one possibility, Yoonji continued slowly. I've detected a pattern in their movements, a kind of signal that coordinates their actions. Every hollow unit seems connected to something larger. If we could disrupt that connection, how? Park asked. I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. Far from the conference, in the cold space near the Kepler corridor, Captain Minho Roo stood on the bridge of his destroyer, the Black Swan. His ship was small compared to the great battleships of the fleet, but she was fast and deadly, built for quick strikes and rapid retreats. Minho had been stationed at the Valori border when the Exodus began. He had watched 3 billion Valori flee past his position, their ships so numerous they blocked out the stars. He had received orders to let them pass, to maintain diplomatic relations. Now there were no relations to maintain. There was only survival. Captain, his tactical officer said, long-range sensors are detecting movement. The hollow advance fleet is approaching. Minho looked at the readout. Hundreds of contacts, maybe thousands, moving toward them like a dark tide. His stomach tightened, but his voice remained calm. How long until they reach us? At current speed, 18 hours. 18 hours. Enough time to write a letter to his wife. Enough time to record a message for his children. Minho thought about Subin waiting for him back on Earth, about his son Haejin, who was only 6 years old. He had promised to take the boy fishing when he returned home, that he might not be able to keep that promise. All hands, he announced over the ship's intercom. This is the captain. In 18 hours, we will engage the enemy. I will not lie to you, the odds are not good. Many ships will fall. Many friends will be lost. He paused, gathering his thoughts. But I have served with you for 5 years, and I know what you are capable of. I know your courage, your skill, your determination. The other species called us the youngest race in the galaxy. They said we were not ready for the challenges of space. Today, we proved them wrong. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Yoon Choi listened to the captain's words while checking the reactor readings for the 10th time. She was a practical woman, more comfortable with machines than with people. But even she felt something stir in her chest. On the weapons deck, Gunnery Sergeant Junho Kwon loaded missiles into their tubes with careful precision. His hands were steady, though his heart was racing. In the medical bay, Dr. Soin Yoon prepared for the casualties she knew were coming. She had enough supplies for maybe 50 serious injuries. She hoped it would be enough. All across the fleet, 200 ships prepared for battle. They were farmers and scientists, soldiers and engineers, teachers and traders, ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances. None of them had asked for this war. None of them wanted to die. But when Admiral Park's voice came over the fleet channel, announcing that the line would be drawn at Kepler Corridor, every single one of them answered, "Ready and willing, Admiral." The darkness was coming. Humanity would meet it head-on. The hollow came like a wave of liquid shadow. Admiral Unipark had studied every battle record the fleeing species had left behind. She had watched footage of Marth battleships being torn apart, of Thurian defense platforms going dark, of entire fleets vanishing into the black mass of the enemy. The hollow were relentless and predictable. They advanced in overwhelming numbers, absorbing losses without hesitation, grinding enemies down through pure attrition. Nobody had ever fought back hard enough to matter. "All ships, hold formation," Park ordered. Her voice was calm, though her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. "Let them come to us." The Indomitable sat at the center of the human formation, 200 ships arranged in a layered defense. The largest battleships formed the core, surrounded by cruisers and destroyers in protective rings. It was a formation designed for one thing: endurance. Lieutenant Jisoo Han monitored the tactical display, watching the red dots of enemy contacts multiply across her screen. "Admiral, they're entering weapons range in 3 minutes." "Good. Signal all ships. Weapons free on my command." Across the fleet, crews made their final preparations. Gunners checked their targeting systems. Engineers prayed their reactors would hold. Pilots strapped into fighter cockpits, knowing many of them would not return. Captain Minho-ru stood on the bridge of the Black Swan, watching the darkness approach. At this distance, the hollow fleet looked like a stain spreading across the stars, a wrongness that made his eyes hurt to look at directly. "Captain," his weapons officer said, "I'm reading energy signatures we don't recognize. Something big is at the center of their formation." "Probably a command ship," Minho replied. "Mark it for the Admiral's attention." The first hollow vessels crossed into weapons range. Park gave the order: "All ships, fire." The void lit up with death. Missiles streaked across space, trailing fire. Laser beams carved bright lines through the darkness. Railgun slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, slamming into hollow vessels with the force of small bombs. The human fleet unleashed everything it had in one devastating opening volley. Hollow ships exploded. Dozens, hundreds. Their black hulls shattered into fragments that spun away into the void. For one glorious moment, it seemed like victory was possible. Then the hollow fired back. Their weapons made no sound, no flash. One moment a ship was there. The next moment it was gone, not destroyed, but simply erased, as if it had never existed. The cruiser Valiant vanished first, taking 600 crew members with it. Then the destroyer Morning Star. Then 3 more ships in rapid succession. "Evasive maneuvers," Park shouted. "Don't let them target you." The battle dissolved into chaos. Commander Taeyoung Kim worked frantically at his console, coordinating fleet movements while ships disappeared around him. "Admiral, we're taking heavy losses on the left flank. The Resolute is gone. The Thunder is heavily damaged. Send the reserve cruisers to reinforce. We cannot let them break through." Jisoo Han's hands flew across her controls, directing fire, tracking enemy movements, calling out warnings. Sweat ran down her face, but she didn't notice. There was no time to notice anything except the endless flow of data. Enemy vessels breaking through Sector 7. Destroyers intercept. 4 destroyers, including the Black Swan, raced to plug the gap. Captain Minho Ru pushed his ship to its limits, dodging enemy fire through maneuvers that would have been impossible for a larger vessel. "Target that lead vessel," he ordered. Full missile spread. The Black Swan unleashed its payload. The hollow ship staggered under the impact, its black hull cracking open to reveal something that looked almost organic inside, pulsing, writhing, wrong. Then it exploded. Direct hit. The weapons officer shouted, but there was no time to celebrate. More hollow vessels were pouring through the gap, and the Black Swan was directly in their path. "Captain, we're taking fire." The ship shuddered as enemy weapons struck her hull. Alarm screamed. Somewhere in the lower decks, an explosion tore through a crew compartment. "Damage report. Engines are failing. We've lost main propulsion." Minho looked at his tactical display. Without engines, the Black Swan was dead in space. The hollow would tear her apart. But behind her, the gap in the human line was still open. If the enemy broke through there, they could flank the entire fleet. He made his decision in less than a second. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for ramming speed." His first officer stared at him. "Sir, we still have maneuvering thrusters. We can still steer." Minho's voice was steady. "There's a hollow carrier coming through that gap. If we hit it, we block their advance." "Captain, you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about." Minho opened a channel to the Indomitable. "Admiral Park, the Black Swan is going to plug this hole. Request you send cruisers to exploit the opening we create." There was a pause. When Park's voice came back, it was heavy with emotion. "Understood, Captain. It has been an honor. The honor was mine, Admiral." Minho closed the channel and turned to his crew. "Anyone who wants to reach the escape pods has 60 seconds. No one will think less of you." No one moved. Minho smiled. "Then let's give them something to remember." The Black Swan turned toward the hollow carrier, a massive vessel 10 times her size, bristling with weapons. The little destroyer accelerated on her remaining thrusters, building speed for her final charge. "Captain," the communications officer said, "I'm recording a message. For your family." "Tell my wife I kept my promise," Minho said softly. "Tell Hajin his father was brave." The Black Swan struck the hollow carrier at full speed. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. A brilliant flash of light, followed by a spreading cloud of debris. The carrier's hull cracked open, venting atmosphere and fire. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure as its own weapons detonated. When the light faded, both ships were gone, but the gap was sealed. 3 human cruisers roared through the opening, catching the disorganized hollow forces from behind. Missiles flew. Hulls shattered. The enemy advance in that sector collapsed. The battle raged for 11 hours. Ships died on both sides. The cruiser Iron Will went down fighting, her guns still firing even as her hull broke apart. The battleship Defiance took 17 direct hits and kept fighting until her reactor finally failed. Thousands of humans gave their lives in that dark corridor between stars. But for every human ship lost, dozens of hollow vessels were destroyed. The enemy had never faced an opponent willing to trade death for death, willing to sacrifice everything for every meter of space. Their predictable tactics faltered against human unpredictability. Their overwhelming numbers meant nothing against human determination. In the 10th hour, something unexpected happened. The hollow stopped advancing. Admiral Park stared at her tactical display in disbelief. The enemy fleet was pulling back, retreating toward the edge of the system. After 80 months of unstoppable conquest, the Hollow were running. "Admiral," Jizuhan said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're retreating." "They're actually retreating." Park slumped in a chair, exhaustion hitting her all at once. Around her, the bridge crew stared at their screens in shock. They had lost 112 ships. Over 30,000 people were dead. The Indomitable herself was badly damaged, with fire still burning on 3 decks. But they had won. On Earth, the news arrived within hours. People gathered in the streets, watching the reports on public screens. They saw the footage of the battle, the ships fighting and dying, the final retreat of the enemy. Many wept. For the dead, for the survivors, for the simple, impossible fact that humanity had stood against the darkness and refused to break. Hope had returned to the galaxy, and it wore a human face. 31 days remained before the Hollow would reach Earth. Dr. Yoonji Beek had finally found her answer. She stood in her laboratory aboard the horizon, surrounded by holographic diagrams that pulsed with complex patterns. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Her hair was unwashed, and she had forgotten to eat for the past 18 hours. None of that mattered now. "It's so simple," she whispered to herself. "So impossibly simple." Her assistant Junsu Lee entered the lab with another cup of coffee, but stopped when he saw the expression on her face. "Doctor, did you find something?" Yoonji turned to him with a smile that was almost wild. "They communicate through quantum resonance. Every single Hollow unit, every ship, every drone, every fragment is connected to a central processing node. They call it, well, they don't call it anything, but I've been calling it the Nexus. A central command?" Junsu frowned. "But their ships seem to operate independently." "They do, but only because the Nexus allows them to. Think of it like a brain controlling billions of cells. Each cell can function on its own, but without the brain coordinating everything, they become." She searched for the right word. "Stupid, confused, unable to work together. So if we destroy this Nexus, we don't even have to destroy it. We just have to disrupt the signal. Blind them long enough for our weapons to work." Yoonji was already pulling up engineering specifications on her screen. "I need to talk to the weapons development team, now." 3 hours later, she was explaining her discovery to a room full of the best engineers humanity had to offer. Among them was Sunho Kang, a quiet man in his 50s who had designed Earth's newest generation of warships. He listened without interrupting, his face showing nothing. When Yoonji finished, Sunho spoke for the first time. "A resonance bomb. You want us to build a device that disrupts quantum communication on a massive scale. Can it be done?" Sunho thought for a long moment. "In theory, yes. We have the technology. But the scale you're talking about..." He shook his head slowly. "It would take months to develop. Maybe years. We have 31 days, Admiral Park said from her holographic projection. The Indomitable was still undergoing repairs, but Park had refused to leave her ship. "The Hollow are regrouping. Our victory at Kepler Corridor was temporary. They'll come again, and next time they'll come with more." General Dongwu Shin crossed his arms. "Can we build this weapon in time?" Sunho exchanged glances with the other engineers. Finally, he nodded slowly. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. But we'll need every resource available. Every shipyard, every factory, every engineer we have. "You'll have them," Park said. "Whatever you need." The project began immediately. A shipyard orbiting Mars was cleared of all other work and converted into a weapons development facility. 3,000 engineers were assigned to the task, working in shifts that ran around the clock. They slept in 4-hour rotations, ate at their workstations, and pushed themselves beyond all reasonable limits. Sunho Kang led the effort with quiet determination. He rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. His designs were brilliant, elegant. Solutions to impossible problems that made other engineers shake their heads in admiration. The resonance generator needs to be tuned to the exact frequency of the hollow signal, he explained during one late-night session. Too high, and it won't reach them. Too low, and it won't disrupt them. We have to be precise. How precise? Asked one of his assistants. Within 1/10,000th of a wavelength. The assistant stared at him. That's impossible. Somehow smiled slightly. 2 weeks ago, winning a battle against the Hollow was impossible. Now look at us. While the weapon was being built, something unexpected happened. A single ship emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter. It was not a human vessel. The design was too elegant, too crystalline. It was Valori. Admiral Park received the transmission on the Indomitable damaged bridge. The hologram showed Ambassador Kira, the same Valori diplomat who had said goodbye before the Exodus. Admiral Park, Kira said. Her compound eyes were dim, and her translator gave her voice a tired quality. I have come alone. My government does not know I am here. Ambassador. Park kept her voice neutral. I thought your people had found somewhere safe to hide. We did. A system far from the Hollow's path, surrounded by dead space that their sensors cannot penetrate. Kira paused. We watched your battle at Kepler Corridor. Every species that fled watched. And what did you see? We saw humans die by the thousands. We saw your ships burn and break. We saw you sacrifice everything for a chance at survival. Kira's voice grew quieter. And we saw something we had never seen before. We saw the Hollow retreat. Park said nothing. She waited. Many of my people feel shame, Kira continued. We told ourselves that resistance was impossible, that running was the only logical choice. But you proved us wrong. You showed that courage can achieve what logic cannot. Shame won't bring back my dead sailors, Ambassador. No, it will not. Kira reached toward her console. But perhaps this will. A data package appeared on Park's screen. Coordinates, sensor readings, strategic analyses, all of it focused on a single point in space. What am I looking at? Park asked. The location of the Nexus. Kira's voice was steady now. The central processing node that controls all Hollow activity. Valori intelligence has been studying them for decades, long before they became a threat. We knew about the Nexus, but we believed it was too well defended to attack. Park stared at the data in disbelief. You had this information all along? You could have shared it before you fled. We were afraid. We convinced ourselves that sharing would only encourage hopeless resistance and lead to more deaths. Kira bowed her head. We were wrong. I am sorry, Admiral. My people are sorry. We cannot undo our cowardice, but we can try to make amends. For a long moment, Park was silent. Then she spoke quietly. How did you get this information? The Hollow kill everyone they encounter. Not everyone. The first ship to encounter the Hollow centuries ago was Valori. It escaped by pure chance, a random hyperspace jump that threw it beyond their range. The crew studied the enemy for years before they died of old age. Their data was classified, hidden away, forgotten. Kira's compound eyes met Park's gaze. Until now. Park looked at the coordinates. The Nexus was deep in enemy territory, surrounded by the largest concentration of Hollow forces in the galaxy. Getting there would be nearly impossible. Destroying it would be even harder. But with the resonance bomb, Admiral, Commander Tae Kim said carefully, if we commit our remaining forces to an assault on the Nexus and fail, Earth will be defenseless. I know. The risk is enormous. I know that too. Park turned to face her crew. But we've spent the last 18 months reacting to the Hollow, defending, retreating, losing. It's time we took the fight to them. She looked at Kira's hologram. Ambassador, will your people help us? Kira hesitated. I cannot promise military support. The fear runs too deep. But I can promise that if you succeed, you will not stand alone again. Every species in the galaxy is watching. If humanity can defeat the Hollow, everything changes. Park nodded slowly. Then we better not fail. On Mars, the resonance bomb was entering its final phase of construction. Engineers worked through the night, their hands steady despite their exhaustion. The weapon took shape, a massive device that hummed with barely contained energy. Sun Ho Kang ran the final calibrations himself, checking every connection, every circuit, every component. When he finished, he stepped back and looked at what they had built. Will it work? Yoonji Beek asked, standing beside him. In theory, yes. But theories don't win wars. He turned to face her. There's only one way to find out. 21 days remained. Humanity was ready. The final battle took place in the shadow of a dying star. Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Indomitable, watching the distant red giant pulse with ancient light. Somewhere beyond that star, hidden in the darkness between galaxies, lay the Nexus, the heart of the Hollow, the brain that controlled their endless hunger. 87 ships had volunteered for this mission. 87 vessels crewed by men and women who knew most of them would not return. They were all that remained of humanity's fleet after Kepler Corridor, after the desperate defense of the outer colonies. After 18 months of running and fighting and dying. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. But they had come anyway. Commander Jusoo Han, promoted after her performance at Kepler Corridor, stood beside the Admiral, monitoring the fleet's status. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled slightly against her console. All ships are in position, she reported. The resonance bomb is armed and ready. Park nodded. The weapon sat in the Indomitable's cargo bay, a massive device that hummed with energy, carefully calibrated to disrupt the quantum signal that coordinated every hollow in existence. If it worked, the enemy would be blinded, confused, vulnerable. If it failed, best not to think about that. Long-range sensors are detecting enemy movement. Tactical Officer Taeyoung Kim announced. Multiple contacts, hundreds, thousands. They know we're coming. Of course, they knew. The Hollow were not stupid, or rather, the Nexus was not stupid. It had learned from Kepler Corridor, learned that humans were dangerous, learned that these tiny creatures refused to behave like prey. It would not make the same mistakes twice. Park opened a channel to the fleet. Her voice echoed through every ship, reaching every crew member who had chosen to follow her into the darkness. This is Admiral Park. In a few minutes, we will engage the enemy for the last time. Not to defend our homes, not to buy time for others to escape, but to strike at the heart of the threat that has consumed half the galaxy. She paused, looking out at the stars. 17 species called us primitive. 46 species called us aggressive. Every one of them ran when the darkness came. They fled to the edges of the universe, hiding in shadows, hoping the Hollow would forget about them. Her voice hardened. We do not hide. We do not run. And we do not forget. Today, we prove that what they called our weakness was always our greatest strength. We don't know how to give up. We never learned how to surrender. And we will never ever stop fighting for each other. Across the fleet, crews listened. Some were crying. Some were praying. All of them were ready. All ships, forward. The human fleet advanced into hell. The Hollow came to meet them like a living wall of shadow. Thousands of vessels, each one a nightmare of wrong angles and impossible shapes, closed around the human formation like fingers around the throat. Their weapons fired silent, invisible beams that erased matter from existence. Ships began to die. The destroyer Braveheart was the first to fall, her hull dissolving into nothing. The cruiser Eternal Hope followed, then the frigate Dawn's Light. Each loss was another name crossed off the list, Another crew that would never see home again. But the humans kept advancing. "Target that carrier," Commander Jizuhan shouted, directing fire toward a massive hollow vessel blocking their path. "Concentrate all weapons." Missiles streaked across the void. Lasers carved bright lines through the darkness. The carrier shuddered under the assault, its black hull cracking, and finally exploded in a burst of strange, colorless flame. The gap it left was filled immediately by 3 more enemy ships. Admiral Park watched her fleet being torn apart and felt nothing but cold determination. They had known the cost. They had accepted it. "How far to the Nexus?" she asked. 12 minutes at current speed, Taeyang reported. "But we're losing ships faster than projected. We may not have enough firepower left to—" "We have enough," Park said firmly. "We have the bomb. That's all we need." The Indomitable pushed forward, her escorts dying around her. The cruiser Ironheart took a direct hit and broke in 2, her crew spilling into space. The battleship Vengeance kept firing, even as her reactors went critical, buying precious seconds for the flagship to advance. 10 minutes. 9. 8. "Admiral, the enemy is focusing on us," Jizu shouted. "They know we're carrying something important." Evasive maneuvers. "All remaining ships, screen the Indomitable." The fleet responded without hesitation. Destroyers threw themselves into the path of enemy fire. Frigates rammed hollow vessels 10 times their size. One by one, they sacrificed themselves to buy their flagship 1 more minute. 1 more meter of progress. 7 minutes. 6. 5. The Nexus came into view. It was vast, larger than any space station humanity had ever built, larger than some moons. Its surface pulsed with dark energy, and tendrils of shadow extended from it in all directions, connecting to every hollow vessel in existence. It was ancient and terrible, and wrong in ways that human minds could barely comprehend. "Target acquired," Taeyang said, his voice barely steady. "Bomb is ready for deployment." 4 minutes. 3. The Indomitable shuddered as an enemy weapon struck her port side. Alarm screamed. Hull breach warnings flashed across every screen. "Engineering report." Chief Engineer Hee-Yoon Choi's voice came through filled with static. "We've lost 2 decks. Reactor containment is holding, but I don't know for how long." "Just give me 2 more minutes," Park said. "That's all I need." 2 minutes. 90 seconds. The remaining human ships formed a final protective ring around the Indomitable. There were only 17 left, now 17 out of 87. Each one was damaged, burning, dying. But they held the line. 1 minute. "Admiral," Jisuhan said quietly, "I want you to know, it's been an honor." Park reached out and squeezed her shoulder. "The honor was mine, Commander. Now deploy the weapon." Jisu's fingers moved across the console. In the cargo bay, the resonance bomb hummed to life, building power, reaching for the frequency that connected every hollow to its master. 30 seconds. The bomb launched. It was a small thing. Really a silver cylinder tumbling through the void toward the massive structure of the Nexus. Enemy weapons tried to intercept it, but the remaining human ships threw themselves in the way, dying to protect that single crucial payload. 20 seconds. 10. 5. The bomb struck the Nexus. The effect was immediate and absolute. Every hollow ship in the galaxy went dark at the same instant. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines died. They drifted in space like corpses, empty and silent, as if someone had simply switched them off. On the Indomitable, the crew stared at their screens in disbelief. The enemy vessels that had been tearing them apart moments ago were now floating harmlessly, their surfaces slowly cracking and breaking apart without the Nexus to hold them together. "It worked," Jisu whispered. It actually worked. The Nexus itself was pulsing erratically, its dark surface rippling like water disturbed by a stone. The tendrils of shadow connecting it to the hollow fleet were dissolving, fading into nothing. "All ships fire everything we have left," Park ordered. "Destroy it before it can recover." The surviving human vessels unleashed their remaining weapons. Missiles and lasers and railgun slugs slammed into the Nexus, tearing chunks from its surface, punching holes through its ancient structure. Without its coordinated defenses, it could not protect itself. The final explosion was silent, as all explosions in space are, but it was visible across the entire galaxy, a burst of light that marked the end of an era. The Hollow were gone. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Una Park collapsed into her chair. Around her, the surviving crew members were crying, laughing, embracing each other. 17 ships remained out of 87. Thousands of people had died, but humanity had one dot in the weeks that followed. The surviving species emerged from hiding. They found humanity battered, bleeding, but standing. The Valori were the first to return, their crystalline ships appearing near Earth with offers of aid and alliance. The Morith followed, then the Thurians, then dozens of others. The Galactic Council reformed, but it was different now. At its center sat not the ancient Valori or the proud Morith, but a species barely 3 centuries into spaceflight. A species that had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Some things are worth dying for. And humans had proven they were willing to prove it. Years later, a monument was built in the void where the Battle of the Nexus had been fought. It listed the names of every ship lost, every crew member who had sacrificed everything. Admiral Una Park, now old and gray, attended the dedication ceremony. Beside her stood Commander Jisoo Han and Ambassador Kira of the Valori. "They're calling it Humanity's Stand," Jisoo said, reading from a datapad. Park shook her head. "It wasn't just us. It was everyone who chose not to give up, human or otherwise." Kira's compound eyes reflected the distant stars. "Perhaps, but it was humanity that showed us how. When every species fled, you stood alone. And in standing alone, you saved everyone." Park looked at the monument, the names, the ships, the sacrifice, and felt tears running down her wrinkled cheeks. Minharu's name was there, along with the crew of the Black Swan. So many others. So many heroes who would never see this day. "We didn't save everyone," she said softly. "We saved what we could." Jisoo took her hand. "And that was enough."